Hey guys, welcome to the shop. Now this week we've been tasked with repairing a broken piece of farm equipment. A shaft was brought to me with some pretty severe damage on it. It's hard to find and it's expensive if you can, so we've been tasked to repair it. So I'm going to take you in the shop, show you what we got, and we'll try to fix it. Well, here is the shaft that I've been tasked to repair. And my nephew brought me this, and it's off of a big piece of farm equipment, a big tiller that you pull behind a tractor. And from what I was told, this part's hard to get and probably extremely expensive also. It's a metric, and the bearings went out of this shaft and caused some pretty severe damage on the sealing area where it seals the gear oil in the crankcase. It's just spewing out everywhere, and that can't happen, so we need to repair it. And I'm going to bring you in a little closer. I'll explain to you what I'm going to try to do, and we'll get started. A little closer look here at the shaft and the damage that we need to repair, and you can see it's pretty substantial really, and it's on one side and not on the other. So I think when the bearings went out of this, it started running eccentric and rubbed away the sealing area. It probably got into the metal inside the gasket and just ate it up. And this comes out of a gearbox, and without this good surface here, it can't keep oil in it. So this has to be repaired in order for the piece of machinery to be, serviceable. I'm going to have to remove this ring in order to get in here to work this surface, and it's welded in several spots. Now this, just common sense tells me that this is just some sort of guard to keep string or twine or grass from wrapping around the shaft and causing damage. Now my plan is to come in here and turn this portion down, slightly proud of this diameter here. That way I don't have to press my repair sleeve the complete length of the shaft. Now, what I've chosen for my repair material is just a piece of hydraulic cylinder body. It has a relatively accurate ID that looks like it's been honed to me. And first thing I'll have to do is cut this off. We'll put it in a lathe, we'll indicate it in. I'm going to come in, I'm going to put a couple centers in here because this will have to come in and out of the lathe in order for me to press on my collar, and then I'll have to come back in and turn it back to the diameter that I'm looking for. I'll have to have some centers to get it accurate so I can bring it in and out. So that's the plan. I'm going to go cut this ring off, and then we'll set it up in the lathe, and hopefully everything goes smooth. Well, I've got everything measured out, and I believe that I'm satisfied with what I've got. It's pretty crucial, I think, for a press fit that you don't mess up, and I don't want to mess this shaft up. And I did a rough drawing. It's not to scale, but all my original dimensions and where I need to go as far as the sizes that I need to get the press fit that I want. That way I don't have to do this stuff on the fly. I've already sat down and I've thought about it. I used my little Starrett telescoping gauges, really handy to have to measure the ID of this pipe, and it's fairly consistent. I think it's got it's warped about 1/1000th of an inch for as best as I can tell. From my measurements, I've sectioned it off here and taken measurements all the way around and trying to average those. And with these telescoping gauges, I think consistency is the key. How hard you tighten the little end here can affect the reading that you get. And I've checked with several different instruments just to make sure I'm correct. But using these is just like using the small hole gauges that I've showed, earlier. And it's all about the feel and the consistency in which you use them. I suggest you take several measurements with these, and that way you're not off. Another thing I want to show you is these little, I don't know if you can see that, but I got a little ball adapter on here to measure the wall thickness of this pipe. Now you can't measure internal radius with these flat anviled mics. So you can buy these little ball adapters, and they come in different sizes. Here's a couple different sizes right here as far as the anvils that they fit. Starrett sells them, they're pretty cheap, and they just adapt your micrometer into a one that can measure on a radius, at least on one face anyway. So pretty neat, and I think they're pretty cheap. I didn't buy these. I did, but I didn't buy them new. So you can get a set of these and accurately measure the wall thickness of pipe without having to spend hundreds of dollars on a dedicated set of mics. So let's go over to the lathe. Let's put this in there and dial it in and cut it. Well, I got this shaft and forge jaw here, and I've got two dial indicators here, two mag bases, and I'm set up, about 1.5 to 2 inches apart. Just so I can make sure that this shaft is straight. I could dial it in with one indicator, but that doesn't mean that the end of the shaft's not going to be, running crazy. So I put two on there, tweak it, just dial it around until I get a good reading on one, especially on the one that's closer in, and then I'll come out, I'll tap this one in closer, then re-dial in. I mean, it's a back and forth thing. Let me get you a little closer on the indicators. It's just two best tests, and I just usually dial in on the high point or tighten the high jaw and loosen the low a little, and just kind of, just like everybody else does it. A lot of times I'll use two wrenches. Got a big one and a small one, and that way I can wrap my hands, from one side to the other, tighten one while I'm loosening the other. When I first setting something up to get me in the ballpark. Kind of hard to do with a camera though, right in your way. On the high. And before I get really tight on my forge jaw here, I'll start tapping around this one. You can probably see this one out here moving much more than this one here. This one's within a few thousandths, this one's within 15, so big difference. I'll just use a leather mallet here, my high point, and I'll have to loosen it up a bit. This way you gotta not over tighten it before you, so it's kind of a dance. On the high there. Alright, and you can see that this one stopped basically within 1,000th, and now this one's within 6,000ths, so it's just a dance back and forth, but it's closer than it was. Bring them in, show you where I'm at. So I'm within about a half thou, a little, maybe a hair over a half thou on both. I mean, I think that's about as good as I'm going to get. So you could chase your tail all day, but I think this is good enough. Alright, so I've been sitting here pondering the best way that I can come up with to do this. And my original plan was to put a center in this end, flip it, put a center in the other end, and turn it between centers, because I'll have to take this thing out, press my sleeve on, and I don't want to rely on that sleeve after I press it on, because it's not really that accurate. They're not concentric. That sleeve's not actually concentric as good as I would like it to be. So what I've decided to do is turn me a little reference ring up here, because I'll lose this reference surface after I press my ring on, and then I'll just have this short section to dial it back in after I put it back in the lathe. But if I turn me a reference surface on this little lip here that I got exposed, I'll still have this surface out here. That'll allow me to come back in and dial it in without having to, be swapping it, trying to get accurate centers in this thing and all that jazz. I think this way it'll be a little simpler and I'll achieve the same goal with less work. That's the idea anyway. So that's what I'm going to try. I guess the first thing I'm going to do is come in here and put me a reference surface. Then I'll come in and skim this in to the size that I want. Press it on, turn it back down. I think we'll be good to go. Alright, for my own sanity, I'm going to come in here and check and make sure that nothing is moved. I just think it's a good idea. I've had it happen before. And we're still within a half thou there, which is what I was shooting for. About as good as I could get, really. And within basically a half thousandth there. So that's good. Come and check my reference surface and make sure it's good. See why it wouldn't be, but never hurts to check, if you're not in that big a hurry, it's a good idea, and we're good. Get a little tick there where we got a little dent in the surface, but not bad. Now I'm going to come in and turn this down. So let's do it. Set my depth stop. No too deep. 0. This stuff is hard. At least it's got a real hard layer on it anyway. close. I'm within 15 thousandths of my final size. I think I'm just going to do it in 2 cuts. Could do it in 1, but I'm not necessarily that gutsy, I don't guess. I like to sneak up on them. .21½, 2 inches, 21 thousandths. I want to get down to 204, 205, right around there. Preferably 205. The shaft has never got warm the whole time I've been cutting on it. I just cut light, and I mean, it feels body temperature really. It's about like the temperature of my hand. Onward. Final cut. Stop a little in and check it just to make sure. Always take more off. You get in real trouble if you're not careful. All it takes is a quick lapse of judgment, which I'm good at. Alright, there we go. The finish actually looks really good. And we hit it. I thought we didn't, but we did as far as these mics. We were going for 2 inches, 5 thousandths. Get them on there. I mean, maybe a couple tenths under. I'm good with that. That'll give us less than 2 thousandths press fit, just ever so slightly. I'm going to come in, I'm going to knock off this sharp shoulder so when I press that sleeve on here it doesn't, you know, bind up, and cut my sleeve to size and press it on. This stuff never dries fast enough. Not for me anyway. Sounds great. There we go. Alright, we got our collar turned down to size as far as her height. And slide it on there. Hopefully this goes well. Just gotta press it on there. It feels good. It's gonna be nice. Press acting up. There we go. Didn't take too much. It's tight, but it's not going to fall off. There we go. Now we turn that down to size. Alright, we're back over on the lathe and bring in and show you where we got our ring that we turned in. Get to 0. And we're within a half a thousandth, so each division is a half thou. So good on there. Now let's move it over here to the other side of the shaft. I just used one indicator this time. You can use two, and it's nice to show you what's really going on, but you can easily do it with one. And we're just you know, a little bouncy out there. So I'm fairly happy that the shaft is straight in the lathe. I'm glad I turned in that reference ring. You know, that saved me some headache. You know, sometimes your plans change during, you know, the job. Because, you know, you start putting in centers and stuff and you can introduce error that otherwise, you know, is unneeded. So I think that this job's went well so far. Hopefully I don't shaft myself by saying that, but so all we got to do is turn this down. I think it's 55 millimeters. I'll have to check my paperwork. That's why you write stuff down, because I'm not exactly for sure on that, but I did write it down. So I'm going to go check the paperwork, and then we'll turn this down, and you know, this should be good to go. All right, 55 millimeters it is. Turn this guy down. Carriage stop set. 0. good right now. We'll have to work on that. We got a lot of material to remove, so we can work on finish later. But this has got to be a pretty decent finish because the seal runs on it. We may have to end up turning it down close to size and polishing it. Almost there. Should be it. Clean it up a bit. We're just slightly large. Not much. I left a little bit for polishing. And I gotta come in and dress this edge, and we should be good. Good enough. Got a little rain on the roof. I'm not going to try to weld this back on. This piece of pipe, it's just a 4-inch OD thin wall tubing or pipe, and it would just take so much away from the job to try to reuse this thing. It just is past its due date. So I made a new one out of a piece of stainless. I already had the stock, so it just took me a couple minutes to thin it out, about 10 minutes probably. And we're going to take it out, we're going to weld this on. I'm just going to TIG weld it just like they did before, and we'll sign this job out. Really happy with the way it's turned out so far. I hit every number that I went for, which was, you know, great. That doesn't always happen. But dimensionally, we're really good on this thing. The finish is acceptable. It doesn't look like a mirror, but it feels like one. I'm not going to spend all day polishing on this thing. It's just not necessary. I think that good enough is good enough. So let's go weld this on, and we'll sign us out. 140 amps. Line this thing up. laid it out. I'm just going to build it just like they did before. 5 fairly heavy spots. 5 or 6 anyway. That's good enough. Filler. Everything that's welded loves to warp and pull. That'll work. I think it's turned out real nice. I'm completely satisfied with this job. There's a couple things I would change, but you know, overall, I'm happy with it. Let me bring you in and get you a little closer look. Not too bad. I think it's going to be nice. I mean, if I had to change anything, I would probably go a little less aggressive on the press fit. We went for 2000s, and I hit my numbers, and that's what we had, a 2000s press. But that tubing was pretty thick, and I didn't heat it. If I had to do over, I'd probably took a propane torch and heated that a little bit before I pressed it on, because it was not real hard to press, but harder than I would have liked. I think it turned out pretty good. That was seamless tubing that we used off of a hydraulic cylinder. That's the body of a hydraulic cylinder. So perfectly capable of handling what we done. The ring turned out real nice. The welding's good, and we hit our numbers. So you can't beat that. You know, for something like this, not easy to get and not cheap. You know, repairing a shaft is a good alternative to buying one. It's still kind of eat up out here, but from what I'm told, that probably won't matter. So it's good to go. Guys, make sure, if you would like to help the channel out, to share my videos on your Facebook or social media. Give me a thumbs up, because it really does help the channel. If you haven't, make sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking on my little guy up here and hit the bell for notifications. And as always, I'll see you next time.